Hi, and welcome back to AI Security Ops Podcast. We have a fun topic today. We are going to dive in to the ever-changing world of search engines and how artificial intelligence technology is changing how we find information online. Now, to a lot of us, this is probably not going to be a big surprise. You probably are already aware when you jump out to Google or whatever favorite search engine of choice that you have, that the results are evolving. They are moving away from just purely links and things, and they're getting to be paragraphs of explanations, and obviously that is driven by artificial intelligence technology. Now, we have an interesting thing here. Many of you are familiar with the term SEO, which is, as I understand it, search engine optimization. There is another term that is being thrown around now that AI is behind some of the content we're seeing in search engines, and that is AEO, which, near as I can tell, is, well, I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think it's AI engine optimization, AI search engine optimization. I don't know.
Answer engine.
Answer. Oh, thank you. I knew it was something like that. See, I knew this, and Brian literally told me a few minutes ago, and I completely spaced out and forgot. So let's start out with some fundamentals. So let's start with SEO. All right, search engine optimization. What exactly is SEO? I'll throw that question over to Bronwyn here. Bronwyn, give us a little definition.
As a recovering web developer, I can say that search engine optimization is the process of optimizing your websites so that search engines will have your website be returned within the first page of search engine results. And search engine optimization has evolved in a lot of different ways over the years. I mean, of course, I remember back when Yahoo was the only search engine around, and then Google came along, and others are around as well. And so it's evolved from using just whatever was on the page to using keywords and metadata tags. And it really is a whole science. And of course, the search engines, primarily Google, they never tell you what the secret sauce is on what changes they're going to make at any point. But the bottom line is that search engine optimization is customizing the way that your website is crafted so that when somebody types in a query to whatever their search engine of choice is, your website will be as close to the top as possible in the results.
Right. So one of the things that's backing that, of course, is on the internet for decades now, there has been these indexes and crawlers that late in the evening, or probably 24 hours a day by now, go running around the internet looking for websites and indexing all the content and looking for all these meta tags and keywords that feed into this search engine optimization process that Bronwyn's talking about. So we talk about security, of course, because we're information security professionals. So Brian, in the search engine optimization field, what are some of the traditional risks there that can lead us astray and get us into some trouble as it pertains to search engine optimization?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to malicious actors kind of gaming the system to put their sites towards the top of results when really they shouldn't be there. And there are lots of different games you see people play. Like one of the things I remember would be super annoying is that you're searching around for something and you might have some like unique keywords in there and you get a page that's at the top of the list. and you go there, you go to the page, and you realize it has nothing to do with what you search for, but why did it come up? And then you look at either the bottom of the page, sometimes you can clearly see it, or if you really dive in and do like the view source, you see that they just have these huge paragraphs of just like mumbly jumbly, it just like, it literally doesn't make any sense, but it's just all these keywords and phrases that they've strung together,
layers and layers of meta tags, right?
layers, just all this to game the system. So that's one way. I think another thing that people used to do is, this was actually a service I think that people would sell, was to basically search for things and then click on your site and then automate this process through bots, so that the search engine sees that, oh, you searched for this term and you clicked on this site, and now rinse and repeat, do this over and over, and now suddenly you're putting that site towards the top. And the issue comes is if that site is actually malicious. And a lot of people, some of the people who play these games, they have malicious content on the site, whether it's downloads or redirects to other malicious sites. And so I think that kind of becomes some of the security concerns, is when these malicious actors are the ones who are gaming the SEO itself.
Yeah. I mean, they're not the only ones gaming the SEO, of course. I mean, those of us who are, in business, like ourselves, we would like, for when you search for a particular information security concern, we would love Black Hills to pop up as one of the top links. So so we're in that business too, and there's a whole slew of people that are aggressively competing to get their links and their information to pop to the top of that search engine response list. So it's important to a lot of folks. It's got security concerns as well, just like anything else. We all know dropping a nice phishing link into a search engine result would be an awesome thing to be able to pull off if we're in the offensive security business.
And all of what we've been discussing so far is strictly dealing with organic search engine placement, as opposed to buying keywords, buying advertise. That is an entire other game that adds even more layers of insanity to it.
Yeah, so there's this whole sub part of the economy that's going on. Okay, so big topic. Okay, now we sort of covered some of the basics there. Now we layer on top of it the power of artificial intelligence and large language models, which we know are just getting better and better and better at being able to craft very wordy responses to detailed prompting. And so naturally, the search engine companies would love to take these technologies and put them together, because it's a really good logical fit, and it can enrich the results instead of just, if you remember the really early days of search, all you'd get was just links, right? But instead of just links in a short paragraph now, folks like Google and others want to give you a full answer to your query as if you had prompted an LLM directly, or maybe they want to give you a link, a paragraph, and an explanation, to really enrich the result. And I could tell you, none of us on this little panel in AI security ops had heard this term until very recently. This AEO, answer engine optimization. You heard that I messed it up as soon as we started the podcast, right? So let's try to see what the definition is around AEO. And I think I just said some of it, right? It really is not a replacement technology. It is an enhancement to search engine optimization, and it's an enhancement that allows the provider to optimize that content to provide more direct, concise answers to user queries, right? So I don't know. Talk to me about your experiences around what you're seeing as you're searching for things. I'll give that one over to Mr. Furman again initially. Brian, tell me.
Yeah, so this technology has actually been around for a little bit now, but it was before we started seeing it in search engines. We saw it in home assistants, so Siri, Alexa, or like I have a Google Home. And when you ask a question to the assistant, you don't want it to just give you a link, right? I mean, that's not super useful if you're like, hey Google, what's the answer to this question? You don't want it to just like read you back a URL. That's not helpful. So what it usually does instead is at least tries to give you an answer. I mean, it's not always great. Honestly, most of the time it's kind of garbage, and I just end up looking up anyways. But nonetheless, that's what they're trying to do or to accomplish. But it was after ChatGPT got really popular that I think that Google and these other companies were like, holy crap, we need to do something right now that has similar capabilities to what we're seeing with ChatGPT, where someone asks a question and gets out an actual answer. They don't have to wade through all these different web pages. They get the information they want. And they probably realize if we don't do something like that now, we're going to lose a lot of business, because I know for a while, I mean, that, and still now, sometimes that's my first go-to are these AI bots rather than search engines. But now that Google has implemented and others have implemented this technology where when you enter a question, you, rather than just get links at the top, you'll usually get some kind of an answer at the top. And that's actually really nice. That's really handy. And I think that's a really cool technology that can certainly save some time in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, another way to say it is, it's question focused content instead of just kind of results out of the database, right? It's got some, context to it. It understands the question better. It brings all that experience that we are gathering from our LLM usage into the search engine world, and it kind of melds those technologies. It's almost as if Alexa or Google Home had a baby with the search engine products. So I'm glad you actually brought that up. What about the impact? I mean, Brahman, what do you think? Just experientially, right? We use this stuff. What do you think the impact of the new baby that has been born brings to us?
Well, I can actually speak to that. I have a roommate who is not in cybersecurity, and he is a returning student going back and getting his bachelor's degree as an adult. And when I introduced him initially to Copilot and ChatGPT, it did well enough for him. But early on, I also came across something called Perplexity. And Perplexity is specifically one of these answer engines. So just as you would ask Siri or Alexa or Google Home about something using your voice, you can do the same kind of thing with Perplexity. And it was from the ground up designed to go out and pull in search engine results and formulate that kind of relevant response based on the question you asked. And I've seen I basically have a microcosm case study that I can observe and interact with. And watching how his ability to ask and answer questions in order to just do his schoolwork, it's been very empowering, and it's helped him cut through a lot of the endless scrolling through pages of links, trying to find the exact resource that you're looking for. And it was only after Perplexity hit the market that ChatGPT and Copilot and these other more traditional LLMs started doing the active web search thing. So my take on the whole answer engine is that it is empowering, especially for people who are non-technical, people who are not data junkies, who do not enjoy weeding through lots and lots of links, lots and lots of sites. They just want an answer. They want something they can use, and they want it now. So it's going to be very empowering. Now, what's going to be interesting in this whole answer engine optimization, again, looking at the gymnastics that we've gone through in code for traditional search engine optimization, I have no idea how to craft something for answer engine optimization.
Yeah. How are we going to game the system now? There's a couple of things in that you both mentioned, by the way, and one of them is, yes, the content we're getting back is enriched and it's way better. But the other thing that you mentioned, which I think is kind of a paradigm shift that this old person hasn't actually made that shift yet, but that is, people are actually starting to change the way they interact with their devices over to being completely voice and audio rather than just typing into the devices. Now, I think because I grew up with technology for so many years, my instinct is to, always type with these hands, right? And I tend to not turn to audio. But I suspect that the primary way that especially younger folks coming into the industry are going to start interacting is not typing anymore. It's going to be a lot more voice interaction because natural language processing is so much more capable of understanding and consuming that as an input. And that just really hasn't been there until very recent times. So, I mean, it's been there in rudimentary forms, like you mentioned, the Google Homes and the Alexa and all that. But now the ability to understand context in a very rich sense is way better than it used to be. And so I think we are seeing a lot of audio interaction. All right, so let's turn to security, though. All right, so we've talked on previous episodes about, deploying LLMs, about trying to secure LLMs, about some of the various aspects surrounding that. And one of the things that we have circled around and always come back to is that large language models are highly susceptible to social engineering, right? We know they're kind of like a naive child, and yes, there's been a lot of attempts to put guardrails around LLMs to stop them from being socially engineered, but those attempts are only partially successful from my experience. So how does that intersect with answer engine optimization and security risks? What are the actual risks that we're seeing now that the search engine companies have had this baby and merged this stuff together? Can we, I'll throw that one to Brian. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, so I would almost say that there's some similarities in the risks, same things that we saw with the SEO that we were mentioning earlier, that it might not necessarily be in like the AI itself, but more kind of what people cause it to do or how they learn to kind of game the system. For instance, if one of the things AEO is looking for is that a site has a question that is well defined and an answer that is right up front, and all this information is towards the top of the page. This is probably going to get ranked higher when the AEO is looking around for results to an answer. But let's say that somebody capitalizes on the fact that people often mistype a certain question. Maybe they misspell a certain word, or they have a certain like structure, or put in the wrong word when they meant a different word. Well, if you then make a website that has that mistyping, that common mistake to it, but you like authoritatively answer the question, well, now you can probably get your site to go right to the top and direct people to it, give them false information and what you return, bad information, whatever you want. So I think a lot of it's still kind of coming down to gaming the system, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's interesting observations. I think also on top of that, we do have the traditional risks and security risks that in AI LLMs that impact answer engine optimization, right? Because so these things, when an LLM constructs a contextually relevant response to a detailed prompt and a detailed query, it's only as good as the data that it has been trained on. And we do know that supply side attack is possible in machine learning operations whereby the data might be poisoned in a training cycle by a malicious actor. So we certainly have that kind of risk that exists there as well. And then what about deepfakes? In AEO, are deepfakes going to be a thing? I don't know. Any speculation on that?
Well, one of the things you were talking about is the generational differences in how we interact with devices. In addition to being more voice-oriented, younger people are also more geared towards video content. And one of the challenges that I see, and this has been a problem on internet-based content for years, is misinformation. So you may have one authoritative website that is spinning one story, and then you have 12 other non-authoritative sites that are spinning it in a different way. Now you add in the ability to create at scale pretend people voicing these misinformation positions and providing that content to people in response to asking a simple query to one of these answer engines. It's going to be really hard going forward to separate fact from fiction.
So I think that's a way of saying that we have the same layered concerns as the LLMs has presented to us. It's just intersected with optimization here. Another thought. Mm-hmm.
Along those lines too, you mentioned mistyping. What about different pronunciations? For example, as a grammarian, one of the mispronunciations that drives me crazy is nuclear versus nuclear. Now imagine with AEO trying to game something so that when somebody uses a common mispronunciation, they wind up going one direction versus if they pronounce it, quote, correctly, they go somewhere else.
Yeah, I hadn't, and there's related stuff to that, obviously. Me being an immigrant, right? I'm a foreigner originally. I'll say funny words because of where I grew up that are funny to you guys anyway. And there are different spellings in English as well that kind of play into that as well. The classic for me is the word aluminium, which is not even used in this country, right? So things like that, I guess, can play around the edges of this. I'm sure there will be efforts by the search engine companies, as there has been with search engine optimization, to present culturally relevant answers depending on geolocation as well. That have to be. I don't think there's any other way to sort of do that. But I guess that makes the job even that more difficult, because you have to, put guardrails, train out the risky content that might be produced on a cultural relevant basis as well, which is significantly challenging, right? Here we are in the AI search era, so to speak. What are some of our mitigations that are around some of the concerns that we have with answer engine optimization? We've seen this, that the user intent matters, right? These things are driven by what questions are being asked by the actual user, right? I guess the user actually has to put their big person pants on and qualitatively assess the answer they're getting back as well.
Seriously, we're going to expect users to do that?
Yeah. All right, but we'll just leave that alone. In terms of implementation, I know that we've seen this already, and we've done some AI deployment security testing at Black Hills, and all of the normal web application API security concerns apply to any technology that's plugging in LLMs, and this is going to include these search engines. So good, strong web application security practices are definitely going to have to be maintained here. And, those are things like, using the right headers, using TLS in the content, making sure that you don't have any cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, et cetera, right? Well, the things that we have tested for years. I do think in the machine learning ops cycle of this, as these answer engine optimization things emerge more, they're going to have a pretty strong pipeline for testing for the quality of answers and for scrubbing out misinformation and or inappropriate responses as well. Any other thoughts?
Well, there's also the fact that as people are interacting, especially conversationally, with these tools, with these devices, they are naturally going to divulge sensitive information. So in addition to making sure that the pipeline remains secure, we also need to make sure that whatever they share is handled appropriately, handled as sensitive information. And we're already having issues with big data companies mining information about people, for profiling, for better marketing. The bottom line is always follow the money. We're going to see that at an even higher scale as big data companies start mining this voice data and the very sensitive, personal, highly personal information that people are likely to share because it's conversational. And they think, oh, I'm just chatting with a friend. That's where their heads are going to be. But you and I know that's not the reality. These are now going to be recorded, they're going to be transcribed, and they are going to be mined. The privacy and sensitivity of information and the fact that people are going to be conversational with these tools, they're going to share more sensitive information, and we're going to have even more challenges in terms of privacy. Who owns that information? Is it owned by the user, or is it owned by the company that's on the back end providing these services? So those are going to be some of the ethical and long-term questions that we'll have to address going forward, definitely.
Right. I mean, and as we've seen with other LLM implementations that are out there, things get blurry very quickly because you start wading into the areas of ethics and safety and appropriateness versus inappropriateness and legality, and there's a lot of very, very blurry lines there that are going to be difficult to manage. And I think sort of there's another fundamental that we all have watched in the industry over time, in the information security industry, that is complexity tends to be the enemy of well-implemented, strong security. And as we look at LLM implementations, an answer engine optimization is definitely one of those implementations. We are seeing increasing complexity and increasing agency of the large language models. And whenever we see that, we generally see the attack surface increase in accordance with that, pretty much as a linear kind of match. And so I think we are going to see some challenges around that. A great discussion. I think it's an interesting topic. We're going to see it evolve some more as time goes on. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the traditional chatbot LLM space, whether they start to go in a more specialized direction and not be as generalized as the search engines kind of eat into that space. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I guess the closeout here is we should always, and this is for everybody, information security and others alike, we should always be looking at the results that we get from any searching activities on the internet with a highly critical eye. And what that really means is verify from multiple sources. Don't just go after the very first answer and think that that's the authentic and authoritative answer, because it might well not be, and we might end up with an answer that includes, LLMs making things up and hallucinating like they've done before, and so forth. Any other closing thoughts from you, Mr. Furman?
No, I think you hit it pretty good. I think that's a really good point. Don't just accept the first thing that's given to you. Always scrutinize, always verify. I think that's very, very important.
Verification, yeah. Brahman, any other closing thoughts?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. Definitely critical thinking is going to become a survival skill, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as usual, be careful out there, and happy prompting. We'll see you next time.